Hello, goedemiddag. My name is Vincent Salucci, and it's my delight to welcome you to the TU Delft Library. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for this exciting exhibition opening, Enter the Equation, on a subject that's near and dear to the library, which is civic engagement and we also sometimes refer to as citizen science, but we're going to sort of unpack maybe some of this nomenclature surrounding this this important subject this evening. And I just have a few points of order that I wanted to mention. Feel free to get some coffee or tea or a sweet before we get started, and also there will be a small borrow afterwards, which you're welcome to join as we go over to the reception and the exhibition, excuse me. And also there is some documentation that is occurring this evening, so if anyone would prefer not to be documented, please talk to Robert over there, and he will make sure that your likeness is not represented in our documentation. I think with that said, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Tanya Jankovic.
Thanks, Vincent. I'll echo what Vincent just said. Thank you very much for being here. It's great to see so many people. A lot of familiar faces, but also a lot of non-familiar faces. I'm hoping we could meet later on during the exhibition itself. Before we proceed with the more interesting part of the thing, the whole opening, I would like to really pay attention to the people who made it happen. More specific, because I was the one who thought, hey, it's a great idea to have an exhibition on how citizen science is important, how involving communities as equal partners is important in research. And then I got the idea together, got the team together, and left. So I also haven't seen the exhibition yet. So I'm really excited to do that. But the people who made it happen is first and foremost Maria. Maria is somewhere around. Maria Bouwmaster, who took on the project without really realizing what the project entailed, took on the coordination and also the design of the exhibition. So thank you very much, Maria, for being brave and making this all happen. Together with Jelle and Saskia, who are also both here, part of the team who generally work on civic engagement efforts at TU Delft, who were part of the core team, and many of you know them from your work with them together. Very often behind the scenes, but very important tireless work was done by Emily van den Akker, our student assistant, also sitting here in the back. Many thanks to the Science Center, specifically to Marit Bogert, who is no longer affiliated with TU Delft, but who was also here during the concept development and did a lot of work on thinking of how do we make this happen and what do we want to happen. And Jules Dudok, who also couldn't make it today, but provided invaluable guidance to the team on what to do and how to do. I also should mention that the whole idea is designed and financed by the Open Science Program and the TU Delft Library, so great thanks for that. Without you, we couldn't make it happen. And I'm just looking who else I am not forgetting. Anke Versteeg made sure that everyone's connected, everyone who needs to be connected for this exhibition, and all the financial matters run smoothly. Vincent, thank you very much for also helping making this happen and for guiding us through this space. And I think that is it for the thanks. I think a very important part. Of course, I can't thank enough the researchers and the communities who are representing their work, but I think their work is going to speak for themselves. And also later we'll hear a little bit of a panel discussion, and they will discuss the work that they're representing there. So I think they will do a better job than I am going to do about it. And now let me give you a little bit of an introduction of what the Enter the Equation is about. So the idea of this exhibition is that it's not just about the research. It's about how we understand knowledge and whose knowledge counts, right? So at its core, the idea that powered the exhibition is very simple but very powerful. Everyone holds knowledge worth sharing, whether it comes from lived experiences, professional expertise, or like everyday observations. Every perspective matters. And when the researchers take it seriously, when they value and they build on the knowledge already present in the communities, it becomes more richer, more impactful, more relevant, and therefore more meaningful. So I could talk a lot about how citizen science, involving citizens, in research, or rather responding to the needs of the communities with your professional expertise matters. But I would rather give the floor to the people who actually do it in their everyday life. So today's program starts with Christel Thieme, alumna of Delft University of Technology and a founder and director of New Future Lab based in Delft. She works on social and socio-technical innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystems. Her work connects people from different contexts, from the design and operation of local third spaces and community centers, to build national coalitions around wicked problems. So Christel is the first one to speak, and while she's coming up here, I'm going to also give a quick introduction of our next part of the program, which is a panel discussion. So panel discussion will be moderated by Jason, and let me introduce him, and he'll do the introductions later on. Jason, very long introduction, sorry. Jason Pridmore is a professor of human-centric AI in society at Erasmus University Rotterdam. He is the coordinator of COLES, which is building a European Science Communication Competency Center, and the coordinator of Seismic, a multinational and multi-industry project pilot in human-centric industry innovations in work context. I think he'll have to talk a little bit more about this because it's a very long introduction. But more importantly for me and for why he's here, he's also one of the important partners in the Hub for Impactful and Engaged Research, which he will introduce later on during the panel discussion. Thank you very much. Christel, the floor is yours. Let me help you with this.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see, it works, right? The sound? Perfect. I have no slides, so you have to listen to me very carefully. So my name is Christel. First and foremost, I think I'm a resident here also in Delft. I came here in 2007 for my studies. I studied aerospace back then, and then over time really moved into the societal domain, I would say. And I really found my home here in Delft. I consider Delft like, I don't know, I find myself here at home. And that's also where I think I've become really passionate about this bridge between the campus and everything happening here, the world I experienced myself, and now being involved in local community centers with a wide range of people from the whole of Delft, also making sure they feel involved in this campus world and more the interaction between both. I was asked to do a talk here, and I always feel like giving a talk helps me also think about the things I do and the things I experience in the work I do. And then it starts with this term citizen engagement, which I think it has the right intentions, and at the same time I'm a little bit in doubt about whether it's the right term. Because on one hand it sounds good, inclusive, responsible, involved. We try to involve the citizens. But at the same time, if I'm honest, I'm somewhat uncomfortable using the term, because engagement, citizen engagement, it suggests that we or the institute or the designers, the researchers, involve them. And it has, I don't know, it somehow puts the designer or whomever is saying that they're engaging the citizens at the center. They become the protagonists of this story, and the people, the citizens, they are the ones being engaged. It's sort of done to them. And I could think, instead of citizen engagement, why not university engagement? Flip the story and think about it in another way. So I think about this a lot, and today I want to share 3 of my reflections with you. So the first one is about forcing people into your context instead of engaging in theirs. So in many research and design processes, we do ask citizens to adapt, because moving into a neighborhood and doing your research there, that is not engagement, I would say. We still say, can you come to this session? Can you fill out this survey? Can you answer some questions? Can you join this co-creation workshop? It still revolves around this action of the citizen in that sense. But how many times, before we ask all of that from them, do we actually step into their world, become part of it without an agenda, join their rhythm, their priorities, their reality? Because when we don't, I do see something subtle happening. We tend to place ourselves at the center. Our process, in a way, becomes leading. Our needs become most important in this equation. And the citizens, they're expected to fit in, to contribute, because they care, right? They should care. It's their living, it's their environment. So we place this expectation on them. But it's the protagonist, hoofdpersoon, narrative. We lead, we decide, you follow, you contribute. And I do feel it's not collaboration, it's more consulting, in a way, on our terms. So I believe citizen engagement, it's not something we can do. Rather, it's a feeling of being engaged, feeling engaged. That's the result of a meaningful and reciprocal process, wederkerig proces. And too often we come to take something, people's insights, people's stories, their lived experiences, and we use that to produce great prototypes and reports, and we learn. Yet we often forget to give back. We consider the fact that they are the ones that can participate in our learning, in our task in that sense, already to be of enough value on its own. But I tend to question if that's really the case. So as my first point, I would say that we have to move from how do we engage them, the citizens in our processes, to how do we engage in the world of the citizens? How do we become part of their processes? The second thing is about meaningful outcomes versus meaningful processes. Often we say we design for impact, for better systems, for inclusive futures. And of course, that's very important and needed and true that we need the input of today to build a better future. But we rarely ask, is this process itself meaningful for the ones involved right now? For the people who give their time, their stories, their energy? Because participation is not free. It costs people something, time, but also it's not without consequences. It creates expectations. People give, but rarely get anything back. No follow-up. The project is done, no feedback. We don't have their details, we don't know them, it's just a one-time interaction. They never hear anything back, and they don't know what happened with their input. Over time, people become hesitant, tired, or just very frustrated. And it's not because they don't care, but I think they've gone a bit numb. We design meaningful outcomes for better futures, but if we don't watch out, we create meaningless experiences in the here and now. And that is a problem, because if the process itself isn't valuable to the people needed to create that future, then why should they stay involved? And I think that's what we're seeing right now with the participation hesitance of people. So maybe when involving people, we should ask ourselves more often, not only will the outcome be inclusive and meaningful, but also will the process be inclusive and meaningful. And the third one is about our language, I would say. We often say participants, consumers, users, but in a way that reduces people to the purpose they serve for you as the researcher or the designer or the institute. Because people aren't just users, they're so much more. They have all of these perspectives and experiences that reach way beyond the thing you're interested in. So quite often I see we approach people from that narrow perspective, but they have a lot of other stories to tell, but they're not relevant, or they can be sort of put aside. And I think these people, they share things that don't exist in books, or methods, or frameworks. They have the most accurate knowledge about how it is right now. Books can never get there. You're always behind, and these people are in the here and now. And these people are not just participating. I would say they're teaching. And especially in a place like this, a university, I feel it matters. Students come here to learn. They need teachers because they attain knowledge, they do projects, they build skills and portfolios. But what if they also left with something else, like a portfolio of relationships, of all of the people that they've met, and that's also part of your portfolio or your your resume. Like I've encountered all of these perspectives in my life, and that makes me a more complete person with a more complete perspective. Because it changes the dynamic, I would say. Citizens become more than a resource in your studies or a data point. They become the ones that shape your view, and you acknowledge them for that. So in preparation of this talk, I'm in doubt, and I'm also continuously challenging myself and my organization, like, are we doing the right thing? And I'm just left with some questions, like, how do we step out of this role of the protagonist, the hoofdpersoon, and how do we meet people as equals? How do we not just design better outcomes, but build better relationships? How do we create the time to be there without an agenda? And how do we don't think of people just as users or from a narrow perspective, but as a teacher of perspectives? Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. We're going to come back to those themes in just a moment, and thanks again for Tanya inviting me and also for the introduction. As she said, I'm Jason Pridmore, and I have the privilege of moderating a small panel of some of the people who have done exhibitions that are going to be opened in a few minutes. So I'd like to invite Joris, Fatima, and Selena up. And while I do that, I'll explain just briefly a little bit about the Hub for Impactful and Engaged Research. About a year ago, there was a call that was put out on citizen science and citizen engagement. Actually, if you can just stand over here, that'd be fantastic. In which a team of researchers, support staff and researchers from TU Delft and Leiden University, along with the medical centers, Leiden Medical Center and Erasmus Medical Center, came together and said, this actually fits us quite nicely, and we wanted to think about this, how to do this together. And so as of February 1st, I believe was the start date, we have been working together to coordinate, because part of the thing that happens is that we do have a lot of engaged researchers across our three universities and medical centers who really are trying to connect quite specifically with citizens and engage them, as well as do things like citizen science and participatory research. And these efforts are often not always well coordinated, so we want to learn from each other. And actually today is a wonderful moment in which we can learn from the exhibitions, but then more personally from three people here today who are going to tell us a little bit about their projects, and they've been prepped with some questions, but we'll see how improv they can be as well. Now, do we have slides for each? Yes. So let's start with Fatima, and I will briefly introduce Fatima Delgado Medina, an Ecuadorian lecturer and researcher at the Delft Center for Entrepreneurship. Since 2008, she has worked alongside indigenous peoples, smallhold farmers, grassroots and social enterprises across Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia on community-led practices of regenerative entrepreneurship and multiple value creation. Her research explores decolonizing sustainability and entrepreneurship, climate action, circular communities, and decolonial participatory design, drawing on relational worldviews such as Sumek Kaswe, Ubuntu, and Trihita Karana to reimagine how value, land, and livelihoods are understood. So please welcome Fatima. I think I will go through each of our panel members one at a time, and then we will open up a discussion. Joris Timmermans is an assistant professor in satellite Earth observation of ecosystems under threat, with 15 years of experience in remote sensor monitoring, including contributing to the design of the upcoming FLEX satellite mission and mapping evapotranspiration and drought over Europe. And in specific here, he has a Arubian heritage, and he's particularly interested, as his exhibition participation will show, interested in building up the capacity within the Dutch Caribbean by performing capacity building at the Rodolphus College in Curaçao and coordinating the Earth observation for the Dutch Caribbean Thesis Lab in the Netherlands Space Agency. So please welcome Joris. And finally, Selina. Selina Westerhoff is a PhD researcher at Erasmus University Rotterdam with a background in cultural studies, anthropology, and sociology. Her PhD research focuses on how university-city relations are reimagined, enacted, and contested in urban context, highlighting specifically engagement and impact discourses and the various tools, methodologies, roles, and arrangements that are involved and how they, in turn, make certain practices possible or even impossible. And so with that, I'd like to turn to a few questions that we have talked about, but I think actually it's more important to tell us a little bit about your exhibition and what we will be seeing only in a moment when it's officially open. So maybe I can begin with yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. As indicated, I'm from, my mother's from Aruba, and that makes me have a feeling that I should give something back. And we know that there's a lot of different things going wrong with the Dutch Caribbean because of climate change, because of biodiversity, geopolitics. And the problem is that whatever they do, they can't validate that has an success because it's a relatively poor set of islands, and they don't gather data the way that we in the Western do. But satellites, they fly around. They fly around continuously and can measure if something happens. So the aim that I have is to give something back to the community there, to strengthen the capacity to utilize this information source.
Okay, fantastic. So, Fatima, would you tell us a little bit about your exhibition that we will be seeing?
Yeah, our project called Empowering Circular Communities in the Galapagos consists of working with different community members to make the seafood system more sustainable in the islands. And that includes the fishers, restaurant owners, members of the government, NGOs, and then I have some reflections on that later. And all the representations of community members in the islands. And what was interesting in this process is how multiple value creation, how they create value in terms of ecological, financial, aesthetic, cultural, social, happens within their terms, within their words. And what happened in the project, we did that with a specific method, which is the circular value flower method. But not only that, the fishers, they felt and they see themselves right now more acknowledged by the rest of the community. There is an acknowledgement and a credit that they can be knowledge keepers, that they are also creating value, they are also innovators, they are also entrepreneurs. And I think that is also kind of also like a call to reflection for the research team, that we were also questioning also who is the expert in the room. So I can share more what we did and what innovations the fishers also have been doing in the process later, and also willing to answer the questions for the exhibition.
I think we'll get to several of those. So, Selina.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think the interesting thing is that the thing that we have in the exhibition here is something that an artist made. She was part of the research as well, and she made a living room of wheels. So it's one of the things or the interventions we introduced in the research to think about how can we talk about the climate, but then in different ways, and finding that out together with people in the neighborhood. So making the climate something that is less abstract, but more about the places you go to with your friends. Where do you go in the summer? How does the weather feel? Where do you play with the kids? But also the living room on wheels is something also where we can sit together as a researcher and as, but both maybe become researchers about what does it mean to sit here as well together. And like the living room is, of course, something that you share, is very intimate, very personal. So that was one part of it, but we also organized an event and did different things in our neighborhood, but then really doing it together with organizations and with people and with artists in a neighborhood that already did a lot of things, like making birdhouses, and how can we make, yeah. So the point was, in general, like how can we make and learn about how the climate feels like, and also for me, as a researcher, I live in that neighborhood as well. So it was to see kind of like, because in scientific research, this idea of like objectivity, but what if I'm like so close to it? Where is the kind of the borders of me being a researcher? So it's a reflection on that as well. We did it with the whole team, continuously reflecting on what do we give back, and do we give something back? Is it a thing or is it a process? And yeah, all that.
Yeah, and of course you just made a huge challenge for all of the questions that I was going to ask, because the next thing that I really wanted to come back to was some of the themes that Crystal brought up, and maybe it is a little bit more, if you can expand about how you engaged in their world, right? Bringing a living room to them, working with the Fishers, and also then bringing satellite imagery to demonstrate things. I'm curious, again, because some of this is bringing things to them, and I want to understand a little bit more about how their own experience became a part of the way in which you were thinking about this context. So that's an open question. I'm not sure who would like to go first.
Yeah, if I may, I think that was central in our project. We know that there's a lot of things going wrong, but if we do this, if I specify to the Dutch Caribbean, this is what's going wrong, this is the solution, it by steps all of the problems that they have in actually making those solutions happen. Mm. So when we started this project, the first thing that we said, we're not going to tell what's wrong, and we're not going to tell what the solution is. What we're going to do is we're going to give you a floor to specify your personal problems. Okay. So we had students. The only thing what we said, we go to your grandparents and ask them what a nice piece of the island where they have a picture, and now you go back and you take the same picture and take those two pictures and tell us what does that tell you, okay. Right? So it makes it personal. I like what you say about intimacy. It's because it becomes climate change then becomes tangible, right?
Yeah. So then it's about starting points.
But I can continue on this. Like the intimacy also comes with the tensions, and you cannot avoid those tensions when working with indigenous local communities or citizens. And then I can share the first. I'm Ecuadorian as well. We speak the same language. I try to really, I need to convince the Fishers that I'm beyond the researcher, I'm beyond the lecturer. And the first encounter, we had a coffee, they decided where to meet, and everything was settled according to what they want. The first thing that they said to greet me was like, please don't betray us. So that was for me a harsh, like a call to action for me. I would not say it was unwelcoming. It was like very clear the expectations they will be having from the project, and they only met me that first time. And this is already showing that there is these tensions, no? They're up between like how to keep the trust and how to navigate the challenges. Maybe I'm already jumping into the questions that we have for today, but I can expand on that. And then what happened is like in one of the activities that we did and the experiments and the prototypes was about fish litter. And we were planning workshops, and then all the workshops happened with experts on fish litter tanning, and neither of those workshops happened in institutional places. It happens in one of the Fishers' houses. And why? This was not logistics, it's because we didn't have any budget for that. It was intentional. The Fishers, they don't trust NGOs. They don't trust universities or any institutional. And this is coming from a historical but also accumulated mistrust. And they were saying, okay, let's do this in our terms. And we already were challenging the default as you do research with community members. That means that doesn't need to happen in our space.
Yeah.
according to our rules at the university, and the communities, they need to come to us. No? It's the other way around.
How did you find this in the neighborhoods that you were in, Selena? Or your own neighborhood, sorry. I realized that.
Well, also like to add to what you said about the distrust that exists already, it's in Rotterdam also. Like there's a lot of researchers and even like consultancies and housing corporations that ask people very often about what they want to see change or what their opinions and all that. And I mean, it's really logical that that people feel like, okay, but you represent an institution, and that it is an interesting thing for me that I found like, okay, I don't want to represent this whole institution, but I want to show my personal side and being there all the time. But I also noticed that it was so important to stay transparent as well about like, oh, but I am still like here as a researcher. But then when in the beginning, when we started to talk with also local organizations and initiatives, talking about that I also didn't know how to do it, and I was just trying to see and to find out and being vulnerable in that, I feel instead of the idea of me being a science, like I'm a researcher, like, or being a researcher that I have to show my value in that to them. It was not about or status or whatever. It's not about that. It's more about like, I feel like just showing that I didn't really know yet either, and I don't know. I feel like that helped.
They participated in the process, so that was also one of the things that Crystal talks about a little bit there, and actually contributed. And I'm curious, because this is also a question that has come up a couple of times about what stops people from listening, participating, and also how do we do that in relation to the institutions that we represent, right? We have two here, and how do we actually change this, well, what did you get published out of that? And that's the end versus, again, some of the follow-up that Crystal talked about. So I'm curious how you think about making sure that people are listening to the fact that that this is a positive potential and also impactful way of being a university. Maybe Fatima, if you want to.
Well, just look around the room. Like, we are still in a university setting. I'm very pleased that we have this insightful conversation with these three colleagues, but where are the community members? Yeah, so that's already giving you an insight why the communities are telling us that we are not doing enough. So from the Galapagos project, what happened? The fishers have been saying to these other NGOs, universities, hey, we want traceability, we want fair pricing, we want to do more prototyping about fish litter, and we want to have more access to the market. If on the topics that we work, and not only that, also we work in other projects that we work. For example, we have the Nairobi communities in the Matare River in Kenya, and they were saying, hey, but you are telling us that our circular practices are just informal. Why don't you see us as a stewardship? And I can keep going. I think we have here also members of the African Advice Cooperative, and they have 10 years of collaboration, I will say in those terms, with Gemeente, and they have still to renegotiate every year the project and the collaboration, and it is just like a starting, I would say, one-off project. And I think that's the reason that there is the willingness, but there is still more. We are just accumulating the ongoing mistrust that has been happening before. So what we can do differently, I mean, I can share many things, but first, indigenous and local communities work require a lot of data collection, a lot of value creation, but most of the work that is done on working with communities, we are not talking about authorship. We are not talking about what is the identity of the research team that is involved, or what is the intellectual property. And this matters because who keeps and owns the data or whatever research outputs that comes with working with communities. There are also regarding how this information, how this knowledge is translated. We are asking them to translate it into the terms that we know. Yep. We ask them to, for example, ask them for credentials. We still ask them, oh, can can you stand here and represent your community and talk and share your knowledge in the language that we all understand because we are still a university? So it seems like we are including, but at the end we are doing the opposite. So, but I think there is I also want to share some hope a note of hope. No, not everything is criticism.
We're going to push you for that in a moment, but then, yeah.
But I can share what is already happening. There are many, I would say, initiatives in the world that they are already talking about indigenous data sovereignty, for example. And I can also reach out again to one of the projects that we have on data commons on the African Vai cooperative. We are also doing that. There is community control IP, and I can keep going. But these practices are still not the common, and that's the problem.
So we see some moments of hope and some, well, many moments of challenge. And one of the things that I hear from just this brief conversation is a lot about the translation and the translation of well, indigenous knowledge, local knowledge into things that actually fit the context in which we work and the challenge there, and also in terms of institutionalization, working with gemeente or funding organizations. And I'm curious about that local knowledge and where is the biggest insights from those things, and how do you amplify this as scientists, right? Because we are, in some sense, bridge builders, but that comes with huge challenges. And I'm curious how you see this, maybe yours or Selena, if you want to.
Well, it's a broad question. And it's maybe also in our this research project was already about like how we could find a different, or like listen to a different kind of language in this whole like climate debate. But well, I think especially in the neighborhood in het Oude Noorden in Rotterdam, there is a lot of initiatives that do like make gardens, or that where people bake pancakes and like very small, big things. And you see there already that people are already talking talking with people or communicating with people beyond just language, or just also with doing things that are very practical that we all do, like. And I think we can learn from that as well in research. So what they're doing there, but it's a bit of a complex question, I think, to answer, because the whole.
If you can answer it in just one sentence, that would be great, and then we can all.
Okay, no. Well, it was because the research was already about it, so it's not that we had like quantitative data to translate. It was about what are the stories people tell, and showing how much. Like the emotions that are there, but how everything is so interrelated to things, and how people care for the climate themselves.
Okay. Yeah, helpful. Yours?
Yeah. So my experience is that local data is much more rich than any of the data that I usually use, and this is strange because I use satellite data, so we've got data all around the world, going back to 1972, but. When we look at it, we have a satellite that's flying around at 700 kilometers above the Earth, being extremely distant from what we actually see. Some of these sensors are very old. And anecdotal data gives us an indication, okay, there was something wrong there at that moment. There's a very interesting thesis that I had to judge, and he looked at flooding in Curaçao. And he didn't have any validation data, because again, Curaçao doesn't have data. So what he used was Instagram, right? So he just went online, and he scraped the whole of Instagram to see where have people taken pictures of flooding. And this was just one moment. But this local data is not just there for this moment, but it's been there for the last 50, 100 years. So tapping into that is crucial.
So tapping into the ways in which people are doing things, that was also part of Crystal's last part. we're about to close, but I do want to, so Fatima, you already hinted at this, right? I would love to know what you think, again, as people are about to go and look at your exhibition, what you see as the biggest challenge, and where you see hope. So this is also, again, Fatima, you gave a little bit of a hint toward your perspective, but I'm curious, again, knowing that people are about to go see your exhibition and read a little bit more and see a little bit more about what you've done. Short wrap-up, challenge and hope.
Yeah, I would say the biggest hope is like you can see through the exhibition the high value of the knowledge of the fishers. I think that was like it's one of the highlights, and I think it's the core of the project. No, we have used a participatory method that has facilitated the process, but the fact that the exhibition is enacting and putting in the center the fishers and their knowledge is like a huge turnover how we also communicate science. But also my remarks, I just want to mention that are just an invitation that how can we reimagine citizens' science. And I want to bring a concept that is coming from the Zapatistas in Mexico that is called pluriversality or pluriversalidad. That it says we are a world where many worlds fit. So science, citizen science can be that. Can be and is already trying to enact that. Like many forms of systems knowledge can meet, can inform in a caring process, and that's my hope. And then the Galapagos is trying to do that with authenticity, with the fact that it's connecting to the place, to the kinship, and to the something that is in intergenerational practice that many fishers, at least from the islands, but it also connects to is happening in the Caribbean, and many other communities are already doing.
Yeah. So then we see this emergence. Yours?
Yeah, if I have any one message to convey to you all is, I understand citizen science is scary. Why? Because you're here with people that talk the same language, right? Have the same culture. And going outside to people that have a completely different way of looking at the world can be scary. But if you're truthful, if you're honest, if you have a goal to really pursue those things that you find important, you will see that, in fact, there's more agreement between each other than there's differences. Okay. And so what I would say is look at all of the incredible activities that are on display, be inspired to do this yourself. Step over that initial scariness. I had that, oh my God, I have to go, I have to finally go back to the roots of my ancestry and help, but it's rewarding ultimately.
Thank you, yeah. The challenge and the moving forward, so, and Selina.
Well, I think, first we have to unlearn a lot of things from what we learn in studying at the university, especially language, but also seeing people as data points and all that. But I also feel like how more we talk about impact and engaging, like the university researchers going to the city and coming closer, we have to be careful of the idea that, for one, that we think we are going to help people, or like that is maybe our role, or that, we see in Rotterdam now there's a lot of students and researchers, more and more people actually going to places that to ask participants for research, and they're kind of like flooded with researchers even more with good intentions. So think about good intentions doesn't always mean, that it is good what you're doing, or just reflect on that is quite important. But as you also both said earlier, I feel there is a lot of like energy and the things that are like happening in the city, and that how you can help, or not help is not a good word then, but I mean like tap onto that and collaborate in that sense. There is a lot of energy, but just it takes a lot of time and for you to show and be there, and then hope that university structures and how your job is designed, that you also have more time to do things that don't have a result immediately. Yeah.
No. Okay, I understand. And actually, you all bookended a little bit what Crystal talked about as well earlier and sort of brought that back. And we do see institutional change as key here. And I will agree, right? We are having this at the Delft University Library, but that's also to bring this to people who are here in Delft and also to hopefully overcome a bit of that scariness of going out, but also understanding a much more plural world, and maybe it's about living together with the people and learning with them. So I'd like to thank my panelists for their contributions this afternoon. And it is a bit of an odd moment for the professor from Erasmus University to introduce the Rector magnificus from Delft University, Technical University Delft. So I am very happy to invite Hester Bijl. So, yeah. She has the privilege of opening our exhibition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Excellent to be here. Lovely to see all of you. Good afternoon. And it's a pleasure to be able to open this beautiful exhibition. I still remember it. One Monday evening back in 2012, a group of year 6 pupils at the Jan van Meer School released 200 rubber ducks into the canals of Delft. Inspired by the famous rubber duck ocean spill that taught the world about ocean currents, our Delft duck race was part of an experiment. Although the ducks themselves were mostly for show, it was the 1100 floats fitted with RFID tags that provided insight into how the water moved when the weirs were raised. The pupils helped track where the floats were going, making it a wonderful example of citizen science in action. I think it was around that time, so 2012, that the idea of engaging a wider audience in research really began to gain momentum. The internet, smartphones and their apps and sensor technology all played a role in this. Citizen science can help us collect data on a scale and with a richness that could never be achieved alone, sometimes from places close as people's back gardens or building facades. However, while data is essential, you just heard it, for our research, citizen science and civic engagement are about much more than that. At their core is the idea that knowledge grows stronger when more people are allowed to contribute. As a society, we are facing increasingly complex challenges, and as universities, we are working to find solutions for them, whether in energy, health, mobility, or the digital society. And these challenges do not exist in isolation, so neither should our research. And that is why we are increasingly inviting people from outside the university, residents, communities, citizens, to quite literally enter the equation and bring their voices into our work. I think the location of this exhibition also matters. Here in our TU Delft Library, we reach a broad and diverse community. We hope to inspire students and researchers to consider how their work connects to society and how they can engage with society beyond our university. At the same time, Enter the Equation isn't just for these walls. In the coming months, the exhibition will be shown in other locations, including DOC and the TU Delft campus in The Hague. There we can engage not only with the academic community, but also citizens directly. And why is this important for us? Well, it helps us, we just heard, to ask better questions, grounded in real life and in real concerns, because it can help us develop then better solutions. As we all know, innovation can fail when it does not take users or human behavior properly into account. And because it helps us build or rebuild, we just heard about that also, trust. When we trust people to participate in a scientific process, it strengthens their trust in science and universities. At TU Delft, we see citizen science as an expression of our values: openness, responsibility, and impact. We aim to have an impact on society, but that also means having an impact with society, we just heard, and in society. And when we create an equal partnership between people within and outside the academic community, we can enrich both the research processes and the impact we have. I would now like to invite you to explore Enter the Equation, a title that's particularly close to my heart as a mathematician. This exhibition shows that science does not take place only behind closed doors. It also happens in neighborhoods and in conversations and is rooted in curiosity. And we just heard about that this equation is not very easy to solve, quite some challenges with it. Well, I hope truly that this exhibition encourages us as researchers and as a university to reflect on how we involve society in our work, how we listen, how we collaborate, and how we share responsibility for knowledge creation. Because when more people enter into the equation, our science becomes not only more robust, but also more meaningful. I hope you will enjoy the exhibition and have a great evening. Thank you. I wish you an inspiring visit.
Thank you very much. I'll give the floor to Maria, who actually designed the exhibition, to give a few words.
Yes. Very short ones, because we've had some great ideas shared already. And I'm just here as the exhibition designer. I had the great responsibility for translating all the researchers' beautiful ideas, all the knowledge of the community for both the visitors and for the researchers. So on that very brief note, please enter the equation. We have drinks, we have food, and we have some very nice content for you guys to explore. And I hope you are curious at the end of the night. Thank you.